Hey everybody, Cinema Sickness here with another weekly watch. We take a look at some of the titles I've been watching throughout the week, and I give you my quick thoughts on them. So let's get right down to it, and take a look at what I've been watching. So the first title we have here is The Croods. I actually watched this one in 3D. Definitely a great CGI animated film. If CGI animated movies are your thing, this is definitely one to see. Very funny, very enjoyable, though in the end, would I say it was anything amazing or over the top or anything that you must see? Not necessarily. It is just your average CGI animated film. It doesn't really bring anything new to the table, but with that being said, it was still very enjoyable. Like I said, good story, funny moments, beautiful animation, great colors. Seeing in 3D was fantastic as well, so yes, I would recommend it, but like I said, nothing over the top, nothing amazing, nothing you absolutely need to see, but if CGI animated films are your thing, this was a great one. I would recommend checking it out. Next one I checked out was Grown Ups 2. Now this movie, oh man, have I heard nothing but bad things about this film. Just everybody was ripping this movie apart. So I went into the film expecting just complete garbage. Now the first Grown Ups movie I thought was just okay. It, had its funny moments, it was enjoyable, it wasn't anything special, but it was an alright film. I kind of felt the same thing about Grown Ups 2. It was just okay. It wasn't horrible. I didn't get done watching this movie and want to just rip it apart like most people did. After I was done watching it, I just went, okay, I saw it. I laughed a few times. The story was all right. It was okay. But I say story, but the more I think about this, it's one of those movies where it's kind of like, what was the story? What was the plot? After you're done watching this movie, you kind of go, wait, what happened? Like, you know what happened. You understand the story, but there wasn't really much of a story. It's really about just a bunch of guys in their town. There's not really like this big plot. There's just kind of this subplot sort of thing of the our main characters against this fraternity and whatnot. But that's not even really the main story. So kind of a weird movie that almost sort of doesn't really necessarily have a plot. It's just kind of a story about some guys. And like I said, it's nothing great. It's nothing amazing. It's just all right. I wouldn't say this film was absolute garbage, though, like most people say. I've seen much worse films than this. It was just okay. You've seen the first one? Sure, check out the second one. I wouldn't say it was as good as the first one. With that being said, I wouldn't say the first one was really all that good to begin with, but it wasn't a horrible, horrible film. If you've been thinking about seeing it, but maybe you haven't because you've heard nothing but bad things, give it a chance, check it out. I don't think you'll be absolutely disappointed. You're not going to love the film because, again, nothing amazing happens in this, but it was an alright watch. I wasn't upset that I checked it out. I'll probably watch it again someday. Who knows? It wasn't that bad. So, had some okay laughs. Was an alright movie. Not nearly as bad as I had heard. Next, I checked out a movie that I've really wanted to see because when I originally picked this one up, I believe on CED a few years ago, a lot of people were saying I have to see this movie. It's fantastic, and that is The China Syndrome. This was a really good watch. I can see why everybody was ranting or raving about this movie. Very, very well done, very enjoyable. All about this big cover-up with this nuclear power plant. Just something goes pretty bad. They sort of try to cover it up. Our one main character, he is, he kind of wants to break the news and get things fixed. As there's this issue that could be a problem. It's not necessarily going to be a problem. It's just this issue with some welds that could be an issue if things go wrong. And he says, we should get this fixed. But it's going to be this a couple $1 million project to get these welds fixed and get these x-rays done. Of course, the electric company, the power company doesn't want anything to do with that. They're like, well, I'm not wasting all this money for something that could happen. But in the end, it does go wrong. And what could happen does happen, though luckily a major catastrophe is averted. But still, it's this whole great movie about this big cover-up with two great, one great journalist and one great cameraman just getting involved. Really well done, very enjoyable. I would definitely recommend it. It's a great thriller movie, so definitely one to check out. Just as good as I had heard. Everybody was great in it. Love the story. Definitely something you should see if you like great thrillers. Then because it was Martin Luther King Day, of course, I had to check out Our Friend Martin, which I just picked up this summer. And it was actually somewhat enjoyable. It's done by Deke, so it does have that very sort of Deke animated feel. Actually, when I posted about it, I was watching this on places like Facebook and Instagram. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, are you watching Captain Planet?" Because the animation looked very much like Captain Planet. Though I would more say this was closer to Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, since it was a bit of this sort of, it was that animation, but also with some like live action, like little scenes put into it. Again, like they do in Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, where like a little screen will pop up and it'll have the actual like really live footage, mixed in with the cartoons or the animated characters. It was doing a lot of that, so I really felt like I was watching an episode of Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, which is fine by me. I love Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego. So a good watch, for what it is. It's basically just this story about these two kids who they go to Martin Luther King Jr.'s house, and apparently there's like this. There's like kind of magical sort of items. There's this one watch they wind and they get transported magically into the past, into Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, and they go through different periods of his time, and they basically learn about him and learn how important he was and what he did for the community and what he did for people in his country and whatnot, and yada yada yada, what you kind of expect. And it's just all right. Although is this weird kind of ending part where I thought it was just kind of tacked on and felt kind of weird, where, they're going through his life, learning about Martin Luther King and what he did for America and the rest of the world. And, that's cool. I get that. That's what the story should be. And then it does this weird thing at the end where one of the characters tells Martin Luther King about, he's going to be assassinated, and like brings him back to the future, and Back to the Future, that just sounded weird. Brings him back to the future, kind of screws everything up, and Martin Luther King Jr. ended up not doing anything and not being the man he was, and racism still running rampant and whatnot. Just this kind of weird thing where it's like, this is what the world would be without him. Kind of an odd sort of just, I get it. It felt like a really weird kind of ending to the movie. But regardless, it was all right. This isn't anything great. Apparently a lot of people used to watch this one in grade school. I got a lot of comments when I was posting this, watching this also, and how people, I used to watch it all the time, every year in grade school. I never saw this in grade school. I don't even know what year this is from. This is from 1998, so that would probably explain why it's a bit too old for this. But, again, it is what it is. It's nothing great, but it's fun Deke animation. If you're a fan of Deke animation, it is something to check out. It wasn't a horrible story. At first, I thought it was going to be a little cheesy. I was thinking to myself, oh man, it's just going to be just a complete cheese fest. But as the story progressed, it ended up being all right. It's nothing amazing, but it is something to watch on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It was enjoyable, again, for what it was. Nothing special, but if you're in animation, you're in a Deke animation, you think it's something you might want to see, sure, check it out. Now, this is something I definitely want to check out. I had seen bits and pieces of this maybe like a year or two ago. I remember I started watching this on TV, and for whatever reason, that cable company, I can't remember what channel this was on, but it was cutting out. I don't know why. I remember the rest of the TV was fine. I could flip through all the channels, watch everything, but that station kept cutting in and out for some really odd reason, and I wasn't able to finish this movie. I watched like the first maybe like half of it, and then like the rest of the half I couldn't watch, and that was The Electric Horseman. So, of course, when I picked this one up, I definitely wanted to check it out, and I didn't, but now I finally am. And it was really good, very enjoyable, all about this rodeo horseman who kind of not really in his prime anymore. He's not the man he used to be, not so famous anymore. Now he's just hawking cereal products and whatnot, and he's drinking a lot. He's not doing so well. And he ends up stealing this horse. There's this prize horse who they bring in, who he's supposed to ride and again, promote this cereal product and whatnot. And he sees that they're drugging him up. There's something wrong with his leg. He's like, the leg should be wrapped. And he just goes, you know what, screw this. I'm basically stealing the horse. Steals the horse, and that's the rest of the story. Is everybody's looking for this horseman. He's stealing a horse. Of course, Jane Fonda here, she's the reporter who goes along with Robert Redford, who has stolen the horse. And it's kind of this weird sort of like love thing they got going on. Of course, they fall in love with one another. You see that kind of coming. And I won't really give away the ending, but it's pretty interesting how him stealing this horse, it's like $1 million horse, and this company's so pissed off. They want him arrested. They want him fired. They want to get rid of this guy. They're so upset. And then it ends up being that he becomes this big kind of like folk hero, and cereal sales go like through the roof, and all this merchandise for him and whatnot comes out. And they realize that by him stealing the horse, is worth more than the actual horse is worth. Pretty funny. So all in all, a decent movie. I'd recommend checking it out. It was a fun story, though. I mean, it is just basically Jane Fonda and Robert Redford walking around a desert a lot with a horse, but still very enjoyable, and I would recommend checking it out. Then a movie that I really had to watch because I heard such great things about this film, and that was Ted. Unfortunately, I was a bit let down. I had heard nothing but how absolutely funny this movie was. Everybody was saying, you gotta see Ted, it's so funny. Funny, 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 funny. So, I don't know if I maybe set the bar too high, but when I went into this movie, I was expecting the funniest movie I'd seen in years. And all in all, it was just okay. It was funny, it had its good moments. I was certainly laughing a lot, but I wouldn't say it was anything special. It was just okay. It was an alright, decent comedy that was certainly funny, certainly worth checking out if you like comedies. This is one to see, especially kind of like more raunchy comedies. This is one to check out. But was I blown away by it? No, I just was not. I was not blown away by this movie. I think it definitely does not live up to the hype. This movie got so much hype that it didn't really deserve because it wasn't that funny. Again, it was funny. It was enjoyable. Again, I would recommend checking it out. I'm not trying to bash this film, but it was not nearly as funny as everybody made this movie out to be. Also, seeing Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis together was a little weird, seeing as there's quite an age difference on those two. And even in the movie, you can just tell Mark Wahlberg looks so much older than Mila Kunis. And my wife and I, like, as soon as we saw them both together, we kind of turned to each other and went, that does not work. It looked really out of place. It looked like he was like her dad. It was kind of creepy almost, but whatever. So again, all in all, would I recommend the movie? Yeah, I would say see it. It was funny. If you like modern day kind of raunchy comedies, this is one to check out. It was enjoyable. It was funny. But does it quite live up to the hype? I'd have to say no. It was not funny as I was expecting. It was not as enjoyable as I was expecting. I thought it was going to be just top shelf, and it ended up being, middle shelf. It was just an alright watch, and again, even though it was funny, it was something I would definitely recommend checking out. I just didn't think it quite lived up to the hype. Then I checked out a movie that I had heard, again, really, really good things about, and this time it definitely did live up to the hype. Though unfortunately, this movie it's not really super well known. It's kind of just one of those sort of movies that just kind of fell off a lot of people's radar, and I think that's a shame. And that is Barney's Vision. Now, the guy who was running the cash register at the Blockbuster video I bought this from was ranting and raving about it. A couple of you guys, when I picked this movie up, said it was fantastic. So apparently everybody thinks this movie, well, everybody who's seen this movie thinks it's great. But unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people have seen this movie, and that's a shame. Because this was such a great, great watch. This is definitely a movie everybody should check it out. I'm not just saying it because Paul Giamatti, my all-time favorite actor, is in this movie, although he was phenomenal in it. But it was such a great watch. Just this really interesting story about this man who's his own worst enemy. And the movie kind of starts out sort of interesting, too, where Barney is just this character, again, who's his own worst enemy. It's just, he's not really a complete douche. He's okay. He's kind of an alright sort of guy, but he's kind of has his little sort of issues, and not the nicest guy in the world, but also not the worst guy in the world. But things aren't going too well for him, and then the movie just changes a lot, where he meets basically the love of his life, and then the story goes on from there, and the story gets a lot more interesting. Extremely sad ending. I don't want to spoil this movie for you. I don't want to give everything away, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But great movie. I will admit, this is the first movie of 2013 that had me, 2014, that had me tearing up. I actually did tear up at the end of this movie. It was really, really sad. Just the ending of it really touched me. And if you're somebody who's married too, you're definitely going to want to check it out. See, I don't want to spoil too much for you, so I won't go too into it. But married people, you should watch this movie, especially if you're a guy. Check it out. It might speak to you a little bit. And again, the ending was just such a sad ending. It did have me tear up. So great watch. Just as good as I had heard. This movie certainly lived up to the hype, though. Unfortunately, it only gets hype from those who have actually seen it, and that's not a lot of people, which is sad. Definitely a movie everybody should check out if you can get your hands on this, or rent it, or watch on Netflix or Redbox or whatever. Check this movie out. You won't regret it. It's a great, great drama. It's got some funny moments in it too, so really good watch. Definitely check out Barney's Vision. You won't regret it. And then the last movie here we have to talk about is The Beaver. Now, this is one I was really looking forward to checking out as well, because I just thought it had a really weird plot. Mel Gibson and this this beaver puppet. I was like, what the hell is going to go on here? Very interesting story about this super depressed man played by Mel Gibson, who was really good in this movie. This was supposed to be like his comeback movie. That didn't really happen. This movie, kind of fell under a lot of people's radar, didn't get a lot of hype. So much for a comeback, I guess. But with that being said, he was really good in it. I mean, Mel Gibson, say what you will about that guy. I mean, he can at least act for what that's worth. So I enjoyed him in this movie. But the movie, again, is about Mel Gibson, super depressed. He's not doing so well. He's things have gone out of whack with his wife and his kids. His whole family. He just doesn't care anymore. He's kind of given up on everything. He's gonna kill himself, and that's what he does. He goes to kill himself, kind of fails at doing that, and wakes up with this beaver, which, after a suicide attempt, wakes up with this beaver, and the beaver takes over his life, basically. He's kind of manifested into this beaver puppet and is living through this puppet, which works out because he's actually a good guy through this puppet. He's this crazy puppet with this British accent, and things are going better with his kids, things are going better with his wife, even though everybody thinks he's like nuts because he's talking through this puppet. Which he kind of explains away by saying his therapist said this was something he should do. Of course, in the end, they find out that wasn't the case. But things are just going better. I mean, he becomes this great man, becomes the man he used to be. But it isn't until the end when... see, I don't want to spoil these movies for you, so I won't give away the ending. Very interesting ending, though, and things, do work out. It is a happy ending to an extent. So something I would actually recommend seeing. It was an enjoyable story. I really liked this one, actually, even though I wasn't quite sure what it was going into it. I hadn't really heard about it until I picked it up and did some research on it. So, good movie. I would recommend checking it out. Mel Gibson, again, was actually really good in it. Unfortunately, not really the comeback movie for him. It should have been, but he was still decent in it. I would recommend checking it out. So, a very interesting movie, all about sort of this mental illness story, but I enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend checking it out. So there you go, guys. That was everything that I checked out over the past few days. A lot of great stuff there. Really don't have anything too negative to say about anything. It was all a great watch for the most part. So that's it. Like I always say, if you like this video, please give me a like. If you're not already subbed, please do. And if you're not already over at cinemasickness.com, head on over there, click on the shop tab, purchase yourself a Cinema Sickness sticker or a Cinema Sickness button. I'd really appreciate it. I'd appreciate the support. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.